Welcome everyone to the October Walk Massachusetts Network event. I'm going to turn it over to our speaker, Sherri Arrington. Sherri.
All right, thank you. Well, we're a really small group today. So anyway, I am with Families for Safe Streets, which I've probably met most of you before and you know who I am. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I got connected specifically with Massachusetts since I live in Palmer, Alaska. 4 years ago, my husband and I were on vacation we had flown into Boston. We're headed to our first destination of the day when we were involved in a crash. We were headed north, and there was a car that there was a truck that lost a tool out of it. And so that crash resulted in my husband being killed. And a few months after that, actually several months after that, I started trying to find places where I could get involved in some kind of street safety advocacy work. And I didn't know it'd be so hard to find some place to volunteer. People just didn't respond to my emails, and I probably didn't know who to contact or how to do it. Anyway, eventually I did make contact with some people, and we started talking, and there was a suggestion that I should work with Families for Safe Streets to start a chapter in Massachusetts. And I had never heard of Families for Safe Streets. So, and Massachusetts, because my husband died there, my kids and I talked about it, and we felt that that was the place that we wanted to work to have the most impact. And if any of you are familiar with Alaska, you know that nobody wants anybody to tell them what to do or how to do it. And it didn't happen here, so nobody cared. So it seemed like a better place to get involved. So that's how I got started with Families for Safe Streets. We are an organization that is dedicated to road safety. Go ahead and flip the slide, please. So the unique thing about our organization is that everyone in it has been personally impacted by traffic violence. All of our members are survivors of crashes or in some way related to a person who was injured or killed in a crash. So this is a very personal organization of people who are very bound together by our similarities. And unfortunately, we're bound together in ways we'd rather we weren't. I was at a meeting recently when I told we were talking about all being connected and having similar things. And I said, to be real honest with all of you, I wish I'd never met any of you, because the way I met you is not pleasant. You know, we're all nice people, and we'd even do some things that are fun, but I really wish I'd never had the opportunity to meet you. I'll point out here, the picture is from our World Day of Remembrance last year. This was when we got to the Commons, in Boston Commons, and we're beginning our program. So as you can see, we had an amazing turnout last year. Next slide. So Families for Safe Streets started in New York City, and I guess that's later. What we do, so we confront the preventable epidemic of traffic violence by empowering those affected through emotional support, advocacy training, and community building. So we try to provide emotional support to people through meetings, personal outreach, mentoring, a variety of things, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, training people to work in advocacy if that's their thing, providing opportunities for people to do advocacy work, which can be a huge variety of things. Some take very little time, some take really huge commitments. So there is a variety of things that the national organization provides us. Like right now, they just had a meeting start on autonomous vehicles, and it's a round table. They have someone from the industry who's talking on the positive side of the vehicles today, invited legislators and other people to learn more about vehicles. So, you know, that's advocacy in a very interesting, nobody's out there yelling or protesting or signing petitions, but they're presenting information and learning. Next slide. somehow I think I lost something.
I think we can
Uh,
skip back to Sherry. I think there was one two back.
Yeah, that one. Okay, so this is the history of the organization. 2014, basically a few parents got together and all right, in my crude language, it boils down to a bunch of moms being pissed off that their babies were being killed. And they band together and they had a little bit of networking. They knew a few people in positions that could help them know where to go and who to talk to and how to start things. And so they were able to get some policies changed. They were able to do some neighborhood work on streets and bike lanes. And because of that, they demonstrated some very significant success in the city of in New York City. And they showed that just common everyday people could get something done if they could band together. And so in the process of across several years, they started having a name for themselves, being known, and across the country, other small communities started asking about how the organization worked and trying to get involved in it. So that's where we began in New York City. Some of you may be aware of the name Amy Cohen. She, of course, is the president now and one of the original people who got this organization started. Okay, now we can go on ahead. What we do, go ahead. Next one. So part of what we do is on the emotional level, you'd say support gatherings for people. And this is a thing that is dynamic. It's constantly changing as far as what we do and how we get together. Because we're a national level organization planning these things, sometimes it's obviously difficult to get together in person. And so we do a lot of Zoom meetings. And when you have people who do or don't show up, then you're trying to figure out how to change things to make more people engaged. It's not that we want there to be more people who need our support, but the people who are out there who need us, we want to find them. So we do provide a variety of monthly gatherings. The birthday and anniversaries is like the birthday month of a person who was injured or killed and the anniversary of their crash. That was usually a more upbeat kind of meeting. Like we'll do fun memories of the person, maybe bring things like when it was Tom's birthday month, I took in these giant 3-foot wrenches because Tom was a mechanic and talked about how he had saved the first mittens our kids ever had 45 years ago. And they were his tool warmers and they hung on the shelves, so fun things like that. We have a sibling group. We have a guy who just recently moved back to Massachusetts. His brother was killed in September last year. So this is the kind of group that would relate to him. And sometimes people like these very specific groups because they feel like there's a connection that's more personal to them, that they're able to relate to people with more similar trauma stories. A survivor group, which would be like me, someone who was in a crash, and most of our survivors are people who've had severe injuries, though I was not injured in our crash. Parent group, we have, I would say that most of our members are parents of a child who was killed in a crash. It seems to be a really driving force for many of our adult members. The loss of a child can be pretty overwhelming. I mean, my brother died when he was 62 and my parents were in their 80s, and I know what it was like for them at that age. I can't imagine the tragedy of a 5-year-old child or a 12-year-old child. We periodically do book club 2 or 3 times a year. We only meet 3 or 4 times. The book does not necessarily have anything to do with crashes, road safety, grieving. It's just a book and something that we can share together. So we don't focus just on sadness or advocacy or tragedy. We try to make our support groups to be things that people would have an interest in that doesn't always have to focus on this specifically. We just started a journaling group, and I was in Washington, D.C. when they had their first real meeting, so I missed that. I was at a planning meeting for it. but some of them will be related to traffic violence. Some of them will just be general, even related to like seasonal things. So just different things. One night we got together and we were painting rocks and just sat and talked about whatever we felt like talking about one night. It was so they can be very casual, but they can also be very structured. But we just try to find a lot of ways to connect to different people. Okay, go on. Next. Peer mentoring. We do have a program where people go through a training process. It's fairly short, and it's not professionals. These are just one victim to another victim. A person indicates that they'd like somebody to communicate with. It could be short-term or it could be long-term. It depends on the person who's asking for the mentor. So basically, when we go through training, we learn how to listen to someone and we learn how to, the kinds of things we should or should not say, how to respond and not to react, and just to be available to someone who maybe needs to vent, or it could be someone who's really looking for advice, but we have to make sure they know we're not professionals. We can't give you any kind of legal advice, but, we can only talk about, our personal experiences, or maybe we can help a person do some research if they're trying to find a lawyer or a counselor. But basically it's an emotional outlet for someone who feels like they need to reach out and have a safe person to talk to. And I kind of relate to this because I used to work in special ed, both resource for kids on the lower level of learning disabilities, and I also was a gifted teacher. And this reminds me of, I had a resource room, and when the kid was getting ready to yell and scream and tell their teacher off, they'd run to my room where they could yell and scream and not get in trouble. And so this reminds me of that. It's a place where somebody can kind of unload and they're safe. But anyway, we do have a training program for this. So it's pretty nice that we have something available, but yet it's low key. Next. Okay, we have advocacy training because obviously we want to change things. We want to prevent people from, we want to stop people being in the same position we're in. And there's a variety of trainings and expectations for people who say they want to be involved. I mean, this is very personal. Ambassador training is what I first did before we had a chapter. I'm in Alaska and I'm all by myself. So it's an individual training. It is done by Zoom, interactive class. They continually change and update and refine how they do their trainings, which is good, because when I did this class, I tried to tell them as a teacher, this is too much. We did 8 hours straight through in one day. And they go, oh, we'll take bathroom breaks and we'll take a lunch break and we'll take a snack break. Hey, I taught high school kids, so they're different than adults, but give me a break. Nobody's going to sit for 8 hours and know what happened the last half of the day. So fortunately, they have broken this down into smaller segments and do it across a longer period of time. But you do learn how to, so say there's a news story about a crash in your hometown. You learn how and who to approach to offer your background, your knowledge, your personal experience to maybe the reporter to see if you can get them to do a follow-up with you to talk about road safety. You learn things like that. You learn how to approach legislators when there's a bill you do or don't like, and what you can say to them and how to approach them. You also learn how to evaluate your local legislators to see who might be on your side about some issue you're concerned with, and you can go to them and they may help you learn how to either change a policy or get a law before your state legislator. So we do individual stuff. It's for me, it's difficult by myself to do things. We also have chapter training or local. It could be city, state. For us, Massachusetts, we did our chapter statewide. This was a series of 12 one-hour classes, and we did it across 24 weeks. So it was like, it felt like it took forever, but I really liked the pace of it because we were given information, we interacted in the classes, we could ask questions, but I'm the kind of person that I kind of need to digest it and think about it. And then maybe the next week I have more classes, which is why when I was in college, I always liked classes that had at least a day between every class because it gave me time to think about what I had heard. And this was a very effective training for me personally. We talked about the structure of the chapters, meetings, how to design them, how to engage people, the kind of things you want to do in your community. And then we were also got all kinds of training related to advocacy and support for our members. There is some national and state training. They've done a couple of workshops. There was one in California last summer, and there'll be one, I think, in New York this fall yet. Some of our trainings are in person. Those are pretty rare because we're spread out so far apart. We do a lot of Zoom meetings, and FSS has an extensive video library that as a member of the organization, you can log in. The videos are short-ish. They're not very long at all, but they target specific topics. And I found them to be very helpful. I went through them in a series, and I go back and watch them over and over again because I'm the person that has to hear it more than once. So anyway, trainings, go on. Okay, things that we do. Let's see. So, of course, rallies and protests, there are times when different actions are important for different things, you know. I know that in some communities where there's an intersection where there have been repeated crashes, like in Springfield, you know, I think there's a place where they keep having crashes over and over again, right, Betsy? And it may be effective to have a crowd show up at there, especially on an opportune weekend or opportune day, to have a group of people show up with signs and make a lot of noise and get attention. Sometimes marches, emails, phone calls, testifying at hearings. I was at a hearing in June on a very, very hot record-setting day. And you know, it had the Joint Transportation Committee meeting, and there were a lot of people there testifying about bills that were important to us. So there's a variety of things we do. Some people are willing to come out once in a year. Some people are very active. Some help plan events. Some just show up once in a while. Everybody's welcome. That's the beauty of having a variety of things that need to be done and that can be done. Is, you know, we never want to make anyone feel pressured that they have to be more involved than they are comfortable with. And we never want people to be asked or feel like they're being forced to do some specific thing that they're not comfortable with. If you don't want to go talk to a legislator and you're not comfortable with that, you would not be very effective in it. Okay, next. Other things we do is legislative visits, writing editorials, World Day of Remembrance, and national campaigns. I was in Washington, D.C. the last week of September. It was not with Families for Safe Streets, but we did do legislative visits. I was in 6 offices in one day, and I did meet with staffers from both senators and our one and only lonely representative from Alaska. And I met with a staffer for Rep. Moulton, Elizabeth Warren, and then I met with Senator Markey and some of his staffers. And so it was the first time I'd actually done this specific type of a legislative visit, but we were well prepared for it going in. And so it was good for me. And of course, they're all very friendly and they nod their head and they say yes. And who knows what they do after you leave, but at least you've let them know, you know, what you care about and you're there. But that is a very, that can be expensive. It can be time consuming. And that's definitely not something everybody wants to get into or is comfortable with. Editorials, World Day of Remembrance, and national campaigns. Right now, Families for Safe Streets has been involved in a national campaign for the last year. It's called Stop Super Speeders, and I don't know how many have heard of our campaign. It's not a national policy or national legislation we're looking for. It's a push for every state to to look at super speeders, people who are repetitively ticketed for speeding. And so this is one of the things that's changing about Families for Safe Streets, is that they have become known around the country, and they are using that. They've stepped up and become a bigger voice. And we started this campaign last year. Washington, D.C. has a law. Washington State, Virginia, all have passed laws related to the Stop Super Speeder, which involves giving judges the opportunity, as one of the consequences, to put in speed control limiters in vehicles as part of a consequence for speeding. Since we started this campaign, last I heard, I think at least 10 states, legislators from at least 10 states have reached out to us asking for more information, how to get started. This has become such a focused policy presence for us that we actually are drafting a model legislation and have some professionals working with us on that. So this is really important for us for the next year, and they want to see if we can't get interest in this in Massachusetts. I know at the last Vision Zero Coalition meeting, somebody mentioned this as an interest. So anyway, that's something of specific interest to Families for Safe Streets right now. And I'll point out again, the bottom photo is last year, World Day of Remembrance. So we were quite the group last year. Okay, next. Okay, Massachusetts. So how did we get started and why do we have a chapter? So about a year after my crash, I connected with a couple people in Massachusetts finally, and we started talking about the possibility of organizing a chapter in Massachusetts. And there were only 3 people talking, so that's not a very big group. Anyway, in August, as Brenda knows, we met with him and we were talking about a partnership with WalkMass. The way our chapters work is we contact a known organization within a community like WalkMass, and we need a sponsoring organization that is a nonprofit organization. And we work together if we build this sponsorship. And the idea is that we're kind of a program within that organization. So we work to support them. They give us support through, or helping us with publicity for events. We work together on similar interests. Well, we were all excited about this, and WalkMass may have never had the resources to move forward with this, because most organizations don't. They just don't, that's one of the problems with developing this kind of a commitment is, these nonprofits are running on a shoestring, and taking on a commitment to help another organization or bring in another program can be very difficult. So anyway, Families for Safe Streets put a moratorium on new chapters, which was kind of a kick in the butt. And the problem was, all of a sudden, they realized that people all over the country, maybe that's an extreme, but there were a lot of people contacting them about building chapters. And they decided that they had to have better control over the chapter structures. And they wanted to make sure that when people organized a chapter, they were successful. And they recognized that they needed better guidelines so that everybody was doing the same basic things, that we all were representing the same thing. And they also recognized that they did not have the infrastructure of support needed for new chapters. And so they pulled back from the idea of sponsoring, allowing any more chapters to form. And we formed a national committee, which I was fortunate enough to be a part of, so I had an idea of what was going on and understand it better. And we redesigned guidelines for chapters and redesigned the memorandum of understanding that would be agreed upon with Families for Safe Streets and our sponsoring organization. And it took forever. you can flip on to the next slide. So it was really 2 years before we ever got an organization started officially. So last December, after realizing that we were not finding an organization that could work with us and fully support us, we broached the concept of multiple support organizations, and we got the go-ahead to try that. And so we got Mass Bike and the Rainbow Fund as co-sponsors for us. And so we have 2 sponsoring organizations, and we started the process last December of negotiating back and forth what the agreement was between these 2 organizations and the National Families for Safe Streets. And I mean, obviously I've been involved in the legal system since the crash, and I know things are slow, but dear God, it took forever. August, we finally had all the legal documents signed. And the best part about that is by the end of the year, they won't be valid anymore. But anyway, we got our documents signed and we are official. We are a real chapter in Massachusetts. And I don't know how many of you know Eric and Mary Beth Olson, but their daughter Sydney was killed in Andover May, 2 years ago, May, I guess it'd be 3 years coming up. And they have the Sydney's Rainbow Fund. And August 30th, they had the Rainbow Day in Andover. And it was an amazing event. And at that event, we were there as Families for Safe Streets, and our organization officially kicked off that day. So it was good, took forever. And the reason I say our documents will not be legal probably by the end of the year is because Families for Safe Streets was a New York organization affiliated with another, I think it's Transportation Alternatives. Well, they are severing that relationship, and there is a local group that will still be in New York, but Families for Safe Streets is becoming an autonomous organization nationally. So we will be signing new agreements with them instead of alternative transportations, which is a good thing. They're growing and they're becoming and they're doing it slowly and purposefully. So I think it's good. We've added more staff. We have a communications director with a tremendous amount of experience in all this tech stuff that people my age struggle with. And so we are official. And we had our first meeting of the entire group in September. I'm going to go to the next slide. And tonight we have our second meeting of the chapter. And so we are struggling with, just figuring out exactly who we are and what we are and how we're going to meet and what we're going to do. But we do have monthly meetings planned. And of course, there's business, but we don't want everything to be business. And as a local group, we do the same things they do nationally, but we want to focus on the people in Massachusetts. And we want to build a strong group. We want to build our community. And I don't mean that we want, obviously, more people to need our services, but we want to find the people who need us because we need their help. And they need us. We can benefit each other. And so we will be providing business meetings, but we also want to have the emotional resources available locally. We're looking at having, a therapist maybe once every quarter, be a part of, have a meeting with a therapist, somebody that can present different programs to us. And of course, we'll be doing advocacy specifically related to the state of Massachusetts and local communities. And when we can build a group of people who have very strong common interests, because we're all in Massachusetts together, we feel that we can be much more effective in getting things done. And also, we partner with local organizations. When WalkMass legislative issues, we, as different groups, we decided at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of legislative sessions before they start, what's the most important things to us, and we support each other. We're not going to be off being the wild hare in the state who's decided that our legislative interest is off base to everyone else. We consider what Families for Safe Streets' interests are, as well as what's most pressing within the state of Massachusetts, and balance that. But we're here to be, an organization that can be effective with the other advocacy organizations, the other groups that are interested in, safe mobility within our state. And we're just hoping that we get people who want to be together, want to work together, and support each other both emotionally and in the effort to reduce the crashes around us. Next slide. Okay, that's our website. If you know anyone who's been impacted by a crash who might be interested in our organization, they can just search for Massachusetts Family for Safe Streets. That's our website there. We just hope that we can, connect with people if they feel that they have a need and a reason to be with us, which would be wonderful. And we are more than happy and welcoming to anyone who wants to talk to us and be with us. Thanks, Brandon. Okay, next slide. Okay. Hope I didn't bore you too much with all of that. Do you have any questions about Families for Safe Streets, what we do, why we're here, how we benefit you? Betsy.
Oh, it is related to what you were just saying. I mean, one of the things we've been able to do with our World Day of Remembrance events over the last few years has been to identify a number of the families or relatives of how the far too many, at least definitely pedestrian and bicycle fatalities in Springfield and well in Hampden County in general. Um, it, so we should direct them, encourage. So I'm gathering a next step for us with them would be to reach out to them and encourage them to um, look into
Right,
the
right.
organization. And is there, if they would rather just call, could they, is there a phone number they should just call, or is it best still to just encourage them to go to the website?
Probably best go to the website, but the reality is, well, I'm 4 hours earlier. I would give you my phone number, but people like to call me at 4 in the morning, so I'm not sure how to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I think probably an email would be best
Okay.
right now. Just because people can get frustrated when they
Yeah.
don't catch someone when they
And
try to
maybe
call
after
too.
you've started to have these monthly Massachusetts meetings, you may find at least hear somebody who would take the initial phone calls or something.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And
Okay.
I do think a phone call is good. We have some printed information. We probably should maybe get some more of that out to people in the community too.
Okay. Yeah. No, I will say, as someone who ran a national organization with chapters, um, your hurdles were very much the it's actually chapters has an official IRS definition and requirements related to being a chapter. So I I'm sure I would hope that is actually the national organization's excuse for their delay and all the red tape, because there is a lot of red tape. People think, oh, we'll just start chapters. Well, that's
Yeah, yeah,
that actually has IRS implications.
yeah, yeah.
I unfortunately know all too well.
Yeah. There are some things we wish we didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Anything else?
So Sherri, first off, thank you for sharing this. This was
Sure.
excellent and a great overview, but then also like seeing kind of like the behind the scenes of how things got started, super helpful. Can you uh do you guys have I thought it was really interesting how you shared that, there are strategies that folks share and learn about how to reach out to reporters. I think that's super important, being able to um, not attack an reporter if you think they're writing a bad story, but actually like op reach out to them with an open mind, and like they're probably someone who's curious about these things, and that's why they're writing a story about it. So being able to kind of spin it that way and really think about ways to give them more information they can learn, I think that's fascinating, and a great way to think about these things. My question is related to that. Like when folks in Families for Safe Streets see an article where there are obvious family members that are quoted in there, do you guys have a strategy on like we should reach out to see if we can be of support? Like it, I feel
Yeah.
it's tough, right? Like
It's very difficult. And sometimes the mechanism of reaching out to a family is very roundabout. When those high school kids from Concord were killed in Florida, Emily wrote an email to a counselor at the school
Mm,
offering, contact with the families if they were interested, because it's hard to reach out to somebody immediately in the family. Another thing where different people have told me they like look through Facebook for GoFundMe's and things like that, and they will find, they'll search for that's family, see if they can find something connected to them. They might find a relative that they will reach out to instead of directly mom or dad of a child that was killed or something like that. So they use social media in ways to try to find connected people, which
right.
is probably easier because I know when Tom and I were in the crash, I never got anything from any support organization. I got lots of very interesting stuff from attorneys' offices. You would not believe some of the stuff I got. But I was much more, I would say my sister or someone like that might have been much more receptive to looking at something that came in the mail or taking a phone call than I would have been in the first week or
Right.
two after the crash.
Right.
My son refused to answer his phone, whereas my daughter was willing to talk to people, but it was very difficult for her,
Right. Yeah.
but
No, that's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, sometimes when we're putting together our yearly crash report, like we want to, you know, have as much information about the folks that were involved in these crashes as well. Like even, identifying who they are in the crashes, because the articles, there's not always a follow-up article. Like, um, so, but yeah, we
I
do.
did.
Yeah,
I didn't even know the name of the truck driver in our crash for more than a year after the crash. I never found anything in the media who
right.
identified the other
The other
person.
person, yeah,
Yeah,
that is left out often. So yeah, we try to, do some light Googling, around the crash dates and
yeah.
that. But
I
um,
get alerts on Massachusetts and Alaska crashes, and I read through the articles and I'm like, how often there's no names in them, and
right.
how do you find out more information and follow up? It's really, I've been surprised by the lack of information. I mean, I know there's a conscious effort for privacy for people, but
I,
I would think
I
that
think
information would come forward.
right. I feel it's part of that. Like, how do we be respectful of the folks that are involved? But then I think it's also, and I will get off my soapbox momentarily, but like it's also the hollowing out of the media industry and like the news industry, where like there used to be, the local paper in Concord that, would have tackled all this stuff and is at every single town council hearing or, following up with the police
Mhm.
about crashes. And now sometimes it's just printing the press release that came about the crash, which doesn't have a lot of information. So,
Right, right. Yeah,
yeah,
yep,
stepping off the soapbox now. So, but
yeah. Okay, World
great.
Day of Remembrance, coming up in November, of course. The third Sunday will be November 16th this year. Again, this is a picture from last year. And you can go to the next slide. So a lot of different people have been working on what's going on, and we of course don't have all the details nailed down. But the idea right now is there will be a bike ride starting in the Cambridge Common and a walk in the Boston Common after the bike riders get there. So they'll join together. Meeting in the Cambridge Common around 10:30. And hopefully we can have everybody lining up by 10:45, as we discussed last week, Brandon. We want the darn thing to actually start on time, not start talking about leaving at 11 o'clock, but be pedaling. And the route is not finalized, but they are, last year they went by the site where there had been 3 crashes and deaths. This year they're talking about possibly going by an area or two where there has been some infrastructure improvements. So bike ride will be gathering at 10:30. Armbands, I think, are just going to be like danger yellow tape tied to the bike or the arm. And so hopefully that will take, a half hour or something. I don't know the route yet. And I think that's an Alexis thing. Okay, next slide. We are talking about walking component to the activity this year. We did not have a walking component last year. And we want to make sure that people, both bike riders, walkers, anyone who wants to participate can do that. So we will be meeting in the Boston Common at 11. Hopefully when the bikers are rolling out, we'll have armbands there also. And our plan is to have some poster making supplies so that we can make some posters that we can then go place around the walkways in the common. So as people then walk through later, they'll see our posters. Plus people who are just out in the common will see our posters, things like safety over speed, or you may have, like I have a poster that has my husband's picture on it, and the day of the crash. So putting out things like that. We'll also have chalk there so people can write maybe names in memory on the steps where we meet, or they can make appropriate signs regarding safety. And so we'll have a little while to do the poster making, then we'll go place them along the walk. So it kind of be like the first round of the walk. Then hopefully the bikers will be there and we'll all make a last round of walk and then start the program. And I don't know, that might be my last slide. And I have no idea who's speaking yet. And that's what I know so far about World Day of Remembrance. I do know we want volunteers. We need people to help at both common before we get started.
This slide was to symbolize that it's a blank slate, and we're
That's
welcoming
right.
folks to help participate in that together. So
yeah. So the registration form, as best I understand it, will have a place where you can register to be a bike rider, a walker, or you can register to be a volunteer at either one of those locations. And so hopefully we will get contact information. We have a huge database of people who were involved last year that will be getting, emails to register. And I think the registration's I can't remember, it's being done by one of the bicycle groups, so I can't remember who.
yeah, I think the Boston Cyclists Union was going to put it together so it can, like you said, it's one place to register for the walk or the bike ride, so people aren't confused. They're not looking in multiple different places, and we can just make sure that it's kept up with all of that information. So, yeah, Walk Massachusetts will be there on the Boston Common, and we're excited to support on this.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sherri. Do folks have other questions either about Families for Safe Streets or World Day of Remembrance? And one way or another, we do hope to see you on November 16th, whether you're biking or if you're just meeting us right on the Common. We're going to meet like at the corner closest to the State House, like the corner of Park and Beacon inside the park, inside the Common.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll be at the Boston Common too, because coming from out of town, I don't have appropriate biking gear. So
That is completely fair. Yes. I'm sure you could borrow a blue bike if you really wanted to.
I know, but last year I was going to do that. And then I decided without a helmet, I felt like I was probably for a safety event, shouldn't ride a bike without a helmet, you
That's
know.
completely fair. That's completely fair. Yeah, that can be a drawback on some of the shared biking. So,
Uh,
well, great. Thank you so much, Sherry. And
sure.
yeah, we'll definitely see you in one little over a month from today. But
Yeah.
thanks again. Really appreciate this. And thank you
Sure.
everyone for being here. We'll also send this out as a recording so folks can watch it if they were not able to join us today. So
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Sherry.
Bye.